Get in, loser. We're going to Starbucks. Hi, I'm Abby. I have a lot of records, and this is a Vinyl Monday bonus episode. So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is usually the series where once a week I sit down and just talk about a classic album I love, but last week was the season 2 finale. This won't be on the regular day, nor is it the season 3 premiere. If 30-minute episodes aren't your thing, don't worry. I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds, both here on my channel and over on my Instagram. If this by chance is your first time here, I do not ever look like this. I dress for the theme every week. The theme is 2014 Tumblr. The bulk of my usual subject matter is stuff from the 60s and 70s, but I cover modern albums if they A, have great cultural significance, B, have great significance to me, or C, have some kind of sonic ties to my usual subject matter. This album happens to have all three. And it's celebrating its 10th birthday, so no better time than now, I guess. Today's album, I guess I can't say this week's album, is AM by Arctic Monkeys. Congrats to those who guessed this one. Remember, if you want to play along, all you gotta do is check out my community tab. That's where I post my hints to what next week's album is gonna be. I host polls over there. You can find that on my channel. Now, if you just want my commentary on this era of music, 2014 Tumblr, my AM review, you can skip to that part in the video. I have this broken up in chapters. All my videos are. But be warned, if you skip, you're gonna miss a lot of context. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's take the plastic off. So my copy is I can't really say it's an original or a repress because, well, this is the vinyl run of AM. This is the general sale pressing that everyone has. For Christmas my first year of college, my parents got me this little brown suitcase turntable, like a Crosley. I no longer have it, but I didn't get any records because my mom thought my dad got the records, and my dad thought my mom got the records. So I went to the mall with my sister the day after Christmas, walked right into an Urban Outfitters, and bought my first 2 albums. This was the first. And I picked this one up along with Born to Die by Lana Del Rey. What a pair. Simpler times, am I right? This is one of the most iconic album covers of recent memory, perhaps for its simplicity. This oscilloscope jacket design was by Matthew Cooper with Alex Turner. From the very little I know, this is not an oscilloscope. The oscilloscope is the piece of equipment that gives you this graph. A voltage graph, of which this logo is supposed to be. They did sneak in a little AM in the middle there. My guess is this was a nod to Joy Division using a ridgeline plot for the cover of Unknown Pleasures. This was another favorite on Tumblr. Fun fact, Joy Division wanted this cover to be black on white instead of white on black. It was Peter Saville who made the call to invert the colors so that the cover would, quote, look sexier. This call worked as I feel it influenced Arctic Monkeys' decision to use white on black for the AM cover. Oh shit, I need to find my Velvet Underground! Try getting anything done during a joint Mercury-Venus retrograde. Yeah, you won't. Found it! Ugh, this is what happens when you have 2 rooms of albums. You don't know where you left your stuff. Outside of speculation, this album title and cover is confirmed to be inspired by the Velvet Underground's VU. Not this VU or this VU, this VU, the compilation. And this piece of equipment measures, wouldn't you know it, voltage. Opening up the AM gatefold, we have this black and white photography by Zachary Mitchell. The guys are wearing a matching uniform of shirts and ties. This is unusual for Arctic Monkeys. I don't think they've done this before or since. On AM, we have Alex Turner on vocals and guitar, also serving as principal songwriter, Jamie Cook on guitar and keys, Nick O'Malley on bass, and Matt Helders on drums. We have a few special guests on this one. Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age does backing vocals on One for the Road and Snap Out of It. James Ford of Alex's supergroup The Last Shadow Puppets contributes keys and tambourine, and Pete Thomas of Elvis Costello's backing band contributes percussion on Mad Sounds. Mad Sounds was written by Alan Smith, and I Wanna Be Yours was adapted from a poem by John Cooper Clarke. AM was produced by James Ford and mastered by Bernie Grundman Mastering. I don't always make note of this process, but he worked for Shelter Records with greats like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Leon Russell, names we've heard on this series before. Roll transition. In order to understand the cultural phenomenon that was AM, we must first understand Arctic Monkeys' career up until AM. Hype has always surrounded AM, the band, not the album. I fear we're entering a Velvet Underground conundrum here. The hype for Arctic Monkeys' debut between 2005 and 2006 is difficult to compare to any other group.
For Arctic Monkeys, this is I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. Don't believe the hype.
The result was whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. One hell of a statement of intent from a very green band. They remain critical darlings and have a very devoted fan base primarily in the UK through the late 2000s. Humbug established them as a popular touring group in the US, but nothing to the scope of what we think of now when we hear the name Arctic Monkeys. Suck It and See was released in June of 2011. This was also produced by James Ford. About a month after this album's release, Alex Turner and his muse, TV host / model / fashion icon Alexa Chung split up after 4 years. To date, even though it's been like 12 years since they broke up, this is still the most public relationship Alex has ever had. It seems they'd been on the outs for a while. Love is a Laser Quest reads as a mournful goodbye to Alexa. By the time AM production begins, both Alex and Alexa are happily in other long-term relationships. Alex is a bit of a serial monogamist, but I wanted to make note of the dissolve of this relationship for reasons that will be apparent later. In February of 2012, we have the release of Are You Mine? This is a weird one. It doesn't share the same production location or producer as any of the other AM material. Are You Mine was produced by Ross Orton at AM's home base in Sheffield. This was a standalone single meant to buy AM more time as they were still hammering out AM. Are we keeping track of AM versus AM? I hope we are. AM production begins in earnest in August of 2012 and lasts until June of 2013. One very important thing to keep in mind for the rest of this video is that with AM, we're looking at a record that was made for radio. James Ford is brought back on board for the project. I imagine Alex calls him up like, I'm not even going to attempt a Sheffield accent. I know my strengths and they're not that. Calls up James like, hey, remember that thing we did? How about you produce this other thing? Another important thing to note is that AM changes their sound with every record. The sounds of AM were influenced by the band's time in America. Now, Alex had lived in Brooklyn for a while with Alexa while they were still together, but right now the whole band is in California. AM was recorded in LA at Sage and Sound and Vox Studios respectively, and Rancho de la Luna in Joshua Tree. These locations profoundly influenced how AM came out. In an interview with NME, Alex described the record as sounding like a Dr. Dre beat, but we've given it an Ike Turner bowl cut and sent it galloping across the desert on a Stratocaster. Alex, I love you, but what the f*** are you ever talking about? Additional work took place at McCall Sound Studios and Full Mongrel Studio. McCall is credited for the engineering specifically. Interestingly enough, enough, a little song you might know off this record, Do I Wanna Know, it's kind of a deep cut. Do I Wanna Know becomes #1 party anthem. Alex was listening back to demo recordings he made on his phone and discovered he originally had #1 party anthem lyrics on Do I Wanna Know. This is a song evolution I never would have guessed. I mentioned Josh of Queens of the Stone Age earlier. He produced Humbug, and he comes back around for backing vocals on AM. He brings the guys a fresh perspective on the record and gets them out of a rut. 2 months before AM's release, they headlined Glastonbury with Do I Wanna Know. This was technically the promo single. I don't count Are You Mine? It was made and released long before the rest of this stuff. Anyway, this was the crest of the, say it with me, hype for AM. Hype is really the word of the day with these guys. The track listing of AM goes as follows. Opening up side 1, we have Do I Wanna Know, followed by Are You Mine? Then One for the Road, next, Arabella, then I Want It All, and side 1 closes with #1 party anthem. Opening up side 2, we have Mad Sounds followed by Fireside, then Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High, next, Snap Out of It, then Knee Socks, and the album closes with I Wanna Be Yours. AM was released September 9th, 2013, 10 years ago this week. This was Arctic Monkeys' breakthrough in the US. They'd had a fair amount of success over here in the past, but nothing like this. Whatever People Say I Am, I think is still their best-selling record in the UK, but AM's the bestseller here in the States. All the singles became rock radio staples, but Do I Wanna Know did particularly well. It was their first single to ever enter the Billboard charts over here. It's been streamed in the billions. The music video has over 1 billion views here on YouTube. It's safe to say this song is their greatest hit. It took 5 years for AM to follow this one up. I think they knew the immense commercial success this had would make the record unfollow-upable. So they did something really fucking cool and intentionally made a record that would alienate a lot of this new fan base. Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. A cool album made even cooler by its place in AM's discography. I want to do some kind of video on this someday. I almost included it in the first mod month because Tranquility Base was celebrating its 5th anniversary, but this one takes the priority. So, what do I think of AM? I can't believe I've made it this long without any air traffic. That's honestly really impressive. Buckle up, this is gonna be a long and sappy section. And disclaimer, this won't be my typical track-by-track breakdown. I'm supposed to be on my fucking break before season 3. The first 2 records I ever got, Born to Die and this, were what being an American teenager in the 2010s sounded like. Recently, I was on the Material Issues podcast, and the hosts were fascinated by my fascination with the 60s and 70s and general vintage/retro things. To my core audience, I'm actually not an oddity. Zoomers have always had a fixation on the retro. Instagram fueled the instant film boom of the early 2010s, and my generation is a huge reason why the vinyl resurgence happened in the first place. Fashion blogs, Instagram, and Tumblr mushed together this kind of grunge revival style that we all loved. This is how I looked through high school and college. All of what you see here is authentic to the period. It seems so silly to say for like 2014, but really. I wore this shirt to parties. I wore the American Apparel tennis skirt, American Horror Story Coven felt hat, and Doc's everywhere. I thrifted this jacket the week before I went to college. My choker collection has been long lost to the sands of time, so I had to borrow this one from my sister. Also had to borrow the hoop earrings. I wore hoop earrings a lot. And this lipstick I bought and wore in 2015. This is how I looked when I loved AM. I remember the cultural explosion of AM here in the States. High schools were the ground zero. Every guy wanted to be Alex Turner all of a sudden. They were all trading their emo side swoops for these weird gelled back pompadour things, and playing 505 and Are You Mine in their garage bands. And every girl wanted to be with Alex Turner. One of my high school friends was firmly in that camp with me. We had photos of Alex as our lock screens. We listened to AM in her mom's minivan on the way to the mall, where we would spend all our pocket money at Forever 21 and Bath and Body Works. We would eat frozen yogurt and see the live-action Cinderella in theaters. We were girls together. If you were 14, 15, 16 in those years, then you know AM is a cornerstone of so many women's girlhoods. So listening to this album and looking at myself in this janky-ass makeshift viewfinder, I feel like I'm seeing a ghost over my shoulder. Here we encounter the interesting conundrum of nostalgia fuel. AM is very much an ode to the looks and sounds of the past. The greasers, the rock and rollers, the sound of the earliest alt-rockers. And now, in 2023, AM has become nostalgia fuel for Zoomers. 2013 was one hell of a year to be a teenager. Us Zoomers talk about the early 2010s the way our parents, the Gen Xers, talk about the 80s. We were smack in the middle of this alt-pop boom that began with Born to Die, The Neighborhoods I Love You, and Electra Heart the year before. Yes, this is the OG hot pink vinyl. I just know there are Tumblr girlies out there who would slit my throat for this. The 1975's self-titled Haim's Days Are Gone and this record are all celebrating their 10th anniversaries really close to each other. This alt-pop and indie rock boom was fueled by kids on the internet who wanted to be these cool kids. Here we are, 10 years on. What do we make of this cultural boom? Well, first of all, mass misinterpretation of Born to Die and Electra Heart ruined an entire generation of young women, myself included. Then you have CEO of controversy Maddie Healy making it increasingly difficult to be a 1975 fan, and Jesse Rutherford of The Neighborhood turning out to be a world-class dirtbag. I did not have that on my 2023 bingo card. So Arctic Monkeys are one of the few acts left from this era of rock music my generation can look back on with a clear conscience. It's tough to say exactly who the muse of AM is. This record's themes of casual sex and loneliness and situationships have only become more relevant to those who grew up with this album, and I have to say those themes do cloud the mystery of who this girl might be. But considering the hints we have, the entirety of the song Knee Socks, a year passing since sharing whiskey and cokes with this girl, Ain't It Just Like You to Kiss Me and Hit the Road, cheetah print coat, organic cigarettes in Arabella, nothing about this record says Ariel Vandenberg to me, or even a stable relationship for that matter. AM is an on-again, off-again, fucking random girls to get her off your mind. I think it's safe to say AM is the Getting Over Alexa Chung album. On to the music, and the thing that set an entire generation of girls' standards so high they might as well be touching the fucking sun. Alex's writing. At best, he's a wonderful lyricist. He's out here saying the horizon tries, but it's just not as kind on the eyes, and I can't even get a text back. Lame! There are high highs on AM in this department, and there are low lows. Do I Want to Know contains them both. You get stuff like, do you ever get that fear that you can't shift the tide that sticks around like summit in your teeth? That's one of his favorite words. God, he's so British. But then you also get, been wondering if your heart's still open, and if so, I want to know what time it shuts. I also roll my eyes at My Sweet Rigmarole and I Want It All, and all of I Wanna Be Yours. I know Alex didn't write that one, but it's just cheesy enough to fit with the pitfalls of his writing. The thing I like most about his writing is you'll be coasting through a song like One for the Road. It's irreverent and cool, like wearing a leather jacket and sunglasses inside at night. Because f*** it, you're cool like that. And then get hit with a left hook like, the mixture hits your heart, don't get that sinking feeling, don't fall apart. And then for the rest of the song, you're, well, trying not to fall apart. This quality is exemplified in Number One Party Anthem. At the surface, it's a song poking fun at partiers, but then comes Call Off the Search for Your Soul, and things change. Don't think you got that Cornerstone reference past me, Alex. Sweat on the walls, so close that the walls were wet. Here we have one of the better bridges he has ever written. The look of love, the rush of blood, the she's with me's, the Gallic shrug, the shutterbugs, the camera plus, the black and white and the color dodge, the good time girls, the cubicles, the house of fun, the Number One Party Anthem. It feels timeless even though there are clear modern references in here. The black and white and the color dodge is a reference to early Instagram filters and the instant film revival of the 2010s. Within the music, you have this uneven rise and fall with the repeated come on, come on, come ons, goading you to cry until it spills over into the bridge. Come on, come on, come on, before the moment's gone. This song is for the girls who cry at parties, who cry on their birthday every year, not for attention, but because there's so much love you either wish you had it yourself or wish you were given it the other 364 days of the year. His ability to craft images this way is wonderful. As for his voice, Alex puzzles me. If you pay attention, you'll notice he's pretty consistently flat, and his delivery can be peculiar. Like, I get it. He is so British, and we love him for it, but I'm not sure how he managed to make "to yours" into one 3-syllable word that ends up sounding like tiaras. Bore me sounds like the word vomit, and he'll twist a word to fit a line. He doesn't care. He shoves the word imaginary down into imaginary to fit in a line of Number One Party Anthem. Yet for the most part, these idiosyncrasies don't drag him down because he's just cheeky enough, just earnest enough, just blasé enough, just heartfelt enough to sell it. I don't know, maybe I'm just noticing this stuff because he's finally divorced himself of the whiny Liam Gallagher thing he used to do in the early days. God, I love dunking on the Gallagher brothers. Shut up, you dick! The strong suits of AM's production are A, its use of keys, I've pointed this out a few times as a strength of pop rock in general, and B, utilizing negative space. The negative space on One for the Road and Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High accent the arpeggiatic, it's a word now, playing style happening here. There's lots of playing with scales. AM haven't done this before or since, and it makes that cool, sexy after dark atmosphere that Josh described this record as having. AM is packed with so many retro references in both the lyrics and sound, it's bonkers. In the sea of late 70s, early 80s revival stuff that was happening, you know, Haim, the 1975, etc. This is a little more ambiguous. It's 60s/70s-ish. Mad Sounds is the champion of the bunch in this respect. I feel like I should dislike it for how derivative it is. It's basically a Velvet Underground song. Velvet Monkeys? Arctic Underground? But I like it. And I'm probably biased because VU are one of my favorite groups of the 60s. When I first heard Fireside, I thought, this is oddly California for AM. I mean, it's a very LA record. But this is different. Then, lo and behold, I learned the guys recorded in Joshua Tree. I'd be willing to put money on Fireside being the Joshua Tree song. Other retro tributes, like I Want It All, tend to fall flat, although it's nice knowing that Alex is a fellow Their Satanic Majesty's Request sympathizer. It's not a bad album, you guys are just cowards. My biggest drawback with this one, the number one reason why my feelings for AM have cooled in the decade it's been out, Arctic Monkeys played it very safe. The reason I can't shout out individual musicians as much as I typically do, besides principal songwriter Alex, the importance of Jamie's keys, and Matt's fills on number one Party Anthem, is because, well, this instrumentation can be so bleh. AM aren't always like this. The records before and after this are so much more varied. I listened to a cut off Humbug right after AM, and the difference back to back, man, this blend feels flat. Colorless. We can do stark black and white, and when it works, it really works, but when the negative space is filled in, the guitar tone is flat with so little dimension. Without this space, the beautiful intricacies get totally swamped. Maybe it's the mix? I don't know. Whatever it is, AM can get to sounding like chewed up dry cereal in your mouth. Just bleh. What I appreciate about Arctic Monkeys, though it may hurt my sentimental little heart, they've never made the same record twice. Case in point, Tranquility Base, coming after AM. Suck It and See was a little more obvious of a sonic lead up to AM, but look closely and you'll find Tranquility Base was here all along. We have references to space and Space Cowboys on Arabella and Fireside. One last thing I want to point out is the pseudo drum machine sound that AM was playing with here, a la The Strokes on This Is It. Now there's an album I need to do an episode on, oh my god! AM sounded the way it did because of The Strokes, like a decade of indie rock sounded the way it did because of The Strokes. So was AM the last great rock record? I say no because, well, as my music taste has evolved, I've found AM as a whole is not great. It's good, but not great. It was very clearly made for rock radio, and that has its prizes and pitfalls, but did it put rock music in the ears of a whole new generation? Yes. 10 years on, AM feels like taking a drunk shower, in the good way and the bad way. It's warm, familiar, retro fuzzy goodness, but dig too much into it, and you're left cold, wrapped in a towel, sitting on the edge of the bed, replaying nights long gone in your head. With such a devastatingly cool exterior shrouding an empty, lonely interior, this was the perfect coming-of-age record for the black and white instant film kids who loved it. Fulfilling or not, we still wish to be as cool as this. Long live the raucous, empty nights of years past. Long live AM. My personal favorites on this one are One for the Road, Arabella, Number One Party Anthem, Mad Sounds, and Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High. Remember, if you want to keep up with all of my favorites from all of the Vinyl Mondays, I have a Spotify playlist linked in my description. I update it every week. And that's it! That's the Vinyl Monday Season 2 bonus episode. Monday, September 18th kicks off Season 3. All I will say about this season is expect the unexpected. You are not gonna know what hit you unless you are like a Swifty level Easter egg super sleuth. What do you think of AM? What do you think of Arctic Monkeys? Leave a comment letting me know. I love hearing what you guys have to say about albums I love. And if you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. Vinyl Monday returns for Season 3 on Monday, September 18th at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys then. Hold on, I need the... Where am I? Yes. Bye!